Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to compare these watches, this Invicta versus the more recently reviewed Pagani Design here. Without further ado, I'm just going to go in and introduce the watches. So on the left here I have the Invicta Pro Diver 40mm. Today this is represented by the favorite 9094. Why did I choose this? Well, because it's blue on blue, right? It's a sunburst blue dial versus the blue of the Pagani Design watch on the right there. So, yep, on the right, it's the Pagani Design. Recently, I went into this in detail, and I've been quite surprised with how, really how good this is. So this is the Pagani Design 43mm model 1617. I call this the Pagani Aquaracer because it really heavily homages the Tag Heuer Aquaracer. Even the symbol, if you look at the Pagani Design symbol, it kind of looks like the Tag Heuer shield logo. So, why these two? Well, they're both dive style watches, and mainly they both retail for around the US $70 mark. This one, the Invicta, might sell for slightly even cheaper at times. They both have 316L steel cases, screw-in case backs, right? The Pagani actually has a surprisingly solid looking screw-in case back, whilst the Invicta has that, of course, that display screw-in case back. They have screw-in crowns, unidirectional dive style rotating bezels, and relatively poor lume, right? They're Invicta has their Tritnite, Pagani, I'm not sure what they use, but they're both relatively poor performing, some of the poorer performing lume in any watch that I've had on the channel. So how does the actual dive credentialed Invicta Pro Diver compare with the surprising quality of the Pagani Design? So that's really the question I had in mind when thinking up this particular head-to-head comparison. So without any more delay, let's get into the actual categories. So caliber, right, the movement in the watch. What we have on the left here is, of course, the Seiko NH35A, very much covered on the channel already. 24 joules, 21,600 beats per hour, and 40-hour power reserve, versus the Pagani Design has the Seagull ST6D movement, right? Less joule count at 17, and a lower power reserve at 30 hours. I think overall, you have to give the nod to the Japanese NH35 movement, right? This one has a lot of use in many watches, is starting to get a little bit more track record, right? Around 8 years now, I believe it's been around. Seagull is one of the better Chinese watch companies, but I think on paper this certainly doesn't measure up to the NH35A, and I think overall track record and widely I guess widely touted to be a very good movement, you have to give the nod to the NH35A here. So I think this one doesn't have a great amount of controversy in this particular category. 7 for the Japanese movement, 6 for the Chinese Seagull movement. Next up, design. Okay, so I think they're both obviously homage watches, right? They're both well executed homage designs. They both have not very good lume. The bezel on the Invicta I think is slightly better, but I think the Pagani measures better in other areas of the overall design. So I'm going to give I guess a tie here, 7 for both, because of how they've really executed the designs that they kind of copy, the Invicta from the Rolex, the Pagani Design from Tag Heuer. Next up, quality. Okay, Invicta I've given 7 consistently. I think they're both well finished, right? If you look at the watches in hand, and I've done this in detail in the previous reviews, right? The quality, the finishing is, you can't really ask much more out of this, I think, for the $70 odd that you pay. Overall, the execution is pretty fair. I've given 7 for both, and I think they're both pretty solid. The Invicta, the bezel is more solid with 120 clicks. This one does have play, right? It does have some backward play, and it is a 90 click bezel, so it's not as good. But this one, the Pagani, does have the solid end links and does have the, I guess, the better bracelet overall with the clasp, which does appear to be nicely machined out there. I've shown this in detail earlier. So, you know, 7 out of 10 for both, for quality, because they kind of like have their strengths and slight weaknesses that I've pointed out. Right, style. Okay, again, difficult to separate for me because, you know, they both take their looks from the watches that they homage, right? It's not original design, it's really a kind of homage slash copy type of design. I think they're very hard to separate. I think they both look excellent. They're both very good looking watches, and I've given 8 out of 10 for both of them, you know, not really separating out on the looks. This is quite subjective, but I like both of these designs. That's just my particular view on this most subjective of categories. Next up, performance. Okay, so Invicta is an actual serviceable diver, a 200-meter dive rating, right? The case is designed to, you know, take that waterproofness, and there's many reports, anecdotal reports on forums and whatnot of people actually using this to, you know, various depths and scuba diving and whatnot. So no doubt, this is actually a functional serviceable diver. It doesn't have the best loom of all, in fact, one of the worst looms that I can find, but it does work. Whereas Pagani, right, okay, so the loom is just as bad. The bezel is poorer, right, it's 90 click and it does have some play around it. And, you know, it's not actually rated as a diver. I'm not sure why, again, you know, this does have a screw-in crown and a pretty nice looking case back that screw in. I don't know why they didn't push for a proper water rating, but they've only water rated this at 30 meters. You can see there on the side there, water resistant 30 meters, and that's really what all they've gone for. So it's not actually a dive credential watch. So I have to give the performance rating to Invicta 7 versus 6 for Pagani. 6 only because I have no qualms about taking this into a shower and surface swimming because of the quality and solidity of the construction. Maybe I shouldn't do that, but it has functioned perfectly well in those circumstances. So I've given 6 to Pagani. Next up, versatility. I think these watches are very similar in, I guess, how they come across in terms of being sporty, right? They have a kind of like a casual feel to it, but you can take the Invicta to more, you know, slightly more smart casual slash semi-formal type of settings. I think, you know, it's 40 millimeters. This is much larger at 43 millimeters. So I've chosen to knock a mark off just because I think mainly because of the size, but also because it's got a little bit more bling on the finishing, right? If you look at the bezel finishing, it's just got a little bit more brightness and reflectivity. So I think it kind of holds it back. So, you know, I have to give the nod here to the Invicta, 8 for versatility versus the 7 for Pagani Design here. Okay, next up, durability. Right, again, they're both pretty solid, right? You know, 316L steel, pretty well finished cases. Right, they're both pretty good. I've given a tie here. Now, certainly the Pagani Design has the larger case, so arguably it's got more material. It certainly looks like it's got more material. It's got slightly ever more heft, about 5 to 10 grams more heft on the Pagani Design here. So maybe you could argue that's slightly more durable, but, you know, they're both mineral glass on the top, no sapphire, no ceramic bezel. I've chosen to give a tie here, 7 out of 10 on both for durability. That's what I've given Invicta before, and I'm going to give the Pagani Design the same mark here. 7 out of 10 on both for durability. Value. Okay, so I've given Invicta 9 before, and I'm not going to change that mark. I think, you know, they're both great value. I really do think that, but the Invicta is dive capable. It's got that Seiko movement, which edges ahead. It's really just about the best Rolex sub-homage you can get for under $100. In fact, it's arguably the best. You know, let me know if you think you can find a better one. You know, 9 out of 10 all round for Invicta. Now, the Pagani, I think it's a very good watch. You know, I think for what you have to pay for this, for 70, I think it's really offering a lot in terms of its finishing, seagull movement and whatnot. But it's not quite up to the Invicta level, and I have to take a mark off here for those reasons that I've mentioned. Right, so 8 out of 10, pretty good, but Invicta is one of the best around, 9 out of 10. All right, brand factor. Okay, controversial, I know. I've given 7 out of 10 to Invicta before, and I'm sticking with that. It's not the most, I guess, well-respected brand by any means. It does sell very, very well in North America, in my understanding. Multiple boutiques there, and much liked, a lot of awareness there. But you know, they do have their issues. You know, their pricing issues. Their model range is just way too huge. So you know, they do have their criticisms, and they do have a lot of supporters, but they do have a lot of I guess detractors as well, you might say. So I'm sticking with my 7 out of 10 for Invicta. Now Pagani, I don't think I can give any higher than a 5, because whilst they're putting out a good product here, they are a mystery. They don't have their own company website listing their watches. They do retail mainly through online large sellers like AliExpress. They do have some listings in Amazon as well, and GearBest, and eBay. Of course, you're going to be able to find listings on eBay. They don't have a direct contact, so I don't know who they are. Right? They do seem to be pretty fair, but because of that, I'm giving it 5 out of 10 for Pagani, like I do for many of these Chinese retail watches, which don't have a clear company identity and I guess in a sense accountability here. Right, last one on the list here, X Factor. So, you know, because the Invicta is the best Rolex sub homage under $100 as far as I'm aware, I'm sticking with my 8 out of 10 on this. You know, it really gives a lot for what you pay for 70 USD for everything that you're getting here. Right, the actual finishing, the solidity, the Japanese Seiko movement, the 200-meter water rating. I mean, you can go on and on. It's 8 out of 10 for me on X Factor on this. Yes, it's a heavy homage, and some people don't like that, and therefore will knock the scores down because of that. But this is just my view, right? This is what I've given in the past, and I still think the same about the Invicta, 8 out of 10 on the X Factor. Now, Pagani. Right, I really think this is a pretty good watch. I really like this. I've enjoyed my time with it. You know, again, shout out to Samuel, local enthusiast and supporter who has made his collection available. And so this is his watch. And I've really enjoyed my time on the wrist. You know, the way it fits, the way it sits, the way it looks. I like it, but it falls short in certain areas. It's not quite up there in terms of what the Invicta offers. And I don't know the company, so I'm going to give it 7 out of 10 for the X Factor on this particular Pagani design. Okay, so in the end, right, if you've been following, you've added up the scores. It's 75 versus 68, which is a bit surprising to me because I thought this was going to do a lot better, a lot closer towards the Invicta. But I think objectively, you can't fault the Invicta. It does win on all the direct comparison categories, right? Or at least equals it, right? So I think in summary, 2 solid, you know, budget dive style homages. The left one is actual diver. This one isn't actually a credentialed diver. The key difference is that Invicta is you know, it's got that water rating. It's got that Japanese movement, right? Pagani has put out a very nice, solid job, but Invicta wins on several categories. Specifically, it's got outright wins and a better movement, better performance, actual dive performance. It's got, I think, marginally better versatility. It's got its value, 9 out of 10 for that. It's got, you know, I think brand is not fantastic, but Pagani have knocked marks off. And it's got the X Factor for being really still the best sub $100 homage that I have yet laid my hands on. So guys, there we go. That's a comparison. My Invicta 40mm Pro Diver versus the Pagani Design 43mm Aquaracer. Let me know what you think. You know, I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this particular comparison, which has been very interesting to do. Guys, if you enjoy my videos, do consider subscribing. I'm putting out new content weekly, always aiming to be objective and unbiased about all things horology. Thank you again for watching, and as always, I will catch you next time.